I'm Lynn Packer with Video Op-Ed 13. An expose of the Coco Berthmann child sex trafficking hoax. This is Coco Berthmann, also known as Sandra Ruff, in one of her many online poses. This one on the stairs of the LDS Church Administration Building. She's a 27-year-old German native whose story she's told hundreds of times, that she was sexually assaulted, often up to 50 times a day, from early childhood to age 15. That she was pimped out to pedophiles in her home by her own mother. That she watched her older sister stabbed to death when the sister tried to free herself from child sex trafficking. And she was converted to the Mormon Church because of a miracle that occurred in Bulgaria. News reporters, internet bloggers, and anti-child sex slavery proponents were all duped, recklessly embraced the hoax, and disseminated Berthmann's false claims worldwide, leaving themselves recklessly exposed to potential defamation lawsuits. Here are 3 examples among dozens of print, audio, and video accounts of Berthmann's primary storyline.
I'm a survivor of child sex trafficking, and I was trafficked for the first 15 years of my life by my own family. I grew up in Germany, taking dance lessons, going horseback riding, and listening to Celine Dion. However, once I closed the doors to my home, everything changed. While other children grew up with monsters under their bed, I had to grow up with the monsters in my bed. The torture that I endured varied. On some days, nothing really happened, and on others, I was raped 10 to 50 times a day. Exploitation. For the first 15 years of my life, I was trafficked by my family, in particular by my mother. And I have escaped on November 2nd, 2009, at the age of 15 by running away. I am originally born and raised in Germany. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay with my family. I actually had to escape my home at the age of 15. I was trafficked by my own family, with my mother operating at the head of the trafficking ring, and was able to survive by escaping on November 2nd, 2009.
Besides national and international media, many Utah media outlets published Berthmann's sensational accusations, such as the Salt Lake Tribune, Brigham Young University, Fox 13 News, Provo Daily Herald, the Maloof Foundation, and KSL Radio News. As an example, the Daily Herald reported that Berthmann's sister Anna was brutally murdered while attempting to escape being prostituted. The paper wrote she was 12 years old when her older sister was stabbed to death in front of her. That was the push Berthmann needed to leave. Google answers the question using the Daily Herald quote. How did Coco Berthmann's sister die? Since her childhood, Berthmann's mother allowed paying strangers to sexually assault and abuse Berthmann and her 2 older sisters. She was 12 years old when her older sister was stabbed to death in front of her. One version of the murder story is that Berthmann's mother forced her to watch the stabbing, that her mother held Coco's head so she could not look away while her stepfather stabbed her sister to death. Afterwards, Coco was forced to remain in the room with her sister's corpse lying in a pool of blood. I can still smell the blood, she told a friend. There's the baby's rape story as told in the Arizona Daily Sun. I have seen children being murdered in trafficking. I have seen babies raped. I go to sleep every night, and I have the images. She said police officers, lawyers, doctors, and teachers would objectify her and purchase her and her siblings from her family. There are other stories. She became pregnant by a pedophile at age 13 and carried the baby to near full term. Her mother, Renata, forced her to get an abortion via C-section without anesthesia. Her mother and stepfather filmed child porn videos and made Coco, on camera, have sex with the younger of 2 brothers. She was forced to help kill the younger brother using a pillow to suffocate him. Her mother committed suicide. Later, she said the suicide was faked. She says a tattoo on her finger identifies which child sex ring she belonged to.
Sure, everybody knows who that victim belongs to. I was branded as a child. I have a little star tattoo on my finger, if you can see it. That was put down from the trafficking ring when I was a child. So everybody knew which ring I belonged to.
So, how much of Berthmann's story is true? Prostituted by her mother from birth to 15 years old? Raped by pedophiles 10 to 50 times a day? Watched her sister brutally murdered while she was trying to escape sex trafficking? None of it. The perhaps dozens of media outlets that published her story in print, in video, and online did not fact-check and did not contact Berthmann's mother or other family members to get either an admission or a denial. The real Coco Berthmann story is about her deceiving gullible, irresponsible news reporters, bloggers, YouTubers, and social media activists who exploited her sensational, fabricated tales. I was the first reporter to interview Berthmann's mother and to search for records that support or refute her daughter's claims. I spoke with Renate Ruff by phone and via Zoom at her home near Stuttgart, Germany. Berthmann's mother denies prostituting either daughter. She provided dozens of records that support her denial. Her daughter, Magdalena, Coco's half-sister, was not murdered, but is alive and living in Lochendorf, Germany. Coco had no sister named Anna. Ruff provided evidence of ongoing contact with their daughter Coco long after Berthmann claimed she fled from her mother and escaped child sex slavery in 2009. Renate Ruff tried to stop the worldwide dissemination of her daughter's sex trafficking allegations. She filed a criminal defamation complaint in Germany against her daughter. She told me she could not afford to hire an attorney in the United States to bring defamation charges against the publishers. She emailed denials to the multiple outlets that were circulating her daughter's child sex trafficking accusations. She said none replied, but some removed their online postings without replacing them with corrections or apologies. In June, BYU published a video online despite the mother's request in advance to not broadcast her daughter's lies. In part, the email said, she was diagnosed with borderline schizophrenia and other illnesses that explain her behavior. We implore you and her to take down these defamatory articles. We also enjoin upon you the cease and desist from publishing and propagating similar lies about her family. As of my publishing this report, the BYU video is still there. I made multiple attempts to get a comment from BYU, leaving messages with Tyler Stacy in BYU's main PR department and with Alicia Geddes, the spokesperson for BYU's TED Talks. I also emailed Rose Palmer, the BYU specialist who oversees TED Talk productions. My email asked, I understand BYU received an email from Coco's family in April, before the broadcast, denying Coco's allegations. Wondering why you didn't vet them. Why did you proceed? She did not respond. What proof is there? Berthmann is lying. I'll begin with smoking gun evidence. 6 years after Berthmann said she fled child sex slavery, she departed for New York to be an au pair, a nanny. Coco Berthmann was photographed hugging her mother, who took her to the airport. In 2013, at age 19, 2 years prior to leaving for America while still in high school, she changed her name. Her first name from Sandra Renata to Coco Vera Jean, and her last name from Ruff, pronounced Ruf in German, to Berthmann, pronounced Berthmann in German, names she apparently made up herself. She graduated from Gymnasium, the German equivalent of high school, at age 21, about 2 years older than the average graduate. Just prior to leaving for the United States, Berthmann gave her mother a scrapbook. was titled For You, All About Me. It was labeled Dear Mama and From Your Sandra. Among the several pages is her photo and her greatest wish to travel the world and be a nanny in the USA. Again, this is 6 years after her supposed escape from her mother's sex trafficking. She wrote in the scrapbook that she is eternally grateful for her mother, that you are always there for me no matter what. She wrote that Vienna is the most beautiful city and that Mama is the most awesome person in the world and also the most erotic. Renata Ruff visited her daughter in New York City the next year, in 2016. This photo shows Renata, her daughter Coco, and Renata's boyfriend who was on the trip. In about 2 years after this visit, Berthmann would be accusing her mother of sex trafficking crimes. Later in 2016, Berthmann left New York and returned to Germany. Then in 2017, she went back to the United States, to Las Vegas, again as a nanny. All this time, she is messaging and phoning back and forth with her mother. It's about a year before they would break off contact and the mother's sex trafficking stories begin. Berthmann often tells the story of what she calls a miracle conversion to Mormonism. It's closely tied with her claim to have been prostituted by her mother beginning even as a baby, and connected to her Bulgarian birthplace tale. In 2017, while working as a nanny in Las Vegas, Berthmann went to Salt Lake City to attend a UVU history class for nannies. One class was taught by a returned Mormon missionary who Berthmann would later call her spiritual mom. The group visited Temple Square, heard the choir, and Berthmann got what she called a special feeling. Here's how the Bulgarian birthplace story came about. She returned to her nanny job in Las Vegas only to get a call from her attorney. She was not born in Germany, but in Bulgaria. Berthmann phoned her Utah instructor to share the startling revelation. Here are 2 versions of her miracle conversion story.
And so after a few weeks, my attorney actually from Germany called me and he's like, "Hey, Coco, can you sit down?" I was like, that's not a good sign. So a lot of things in my early childhood infant life, they're still not clear. So he called me, he's like, "Well, we found out that you've been in an orphanage in Bulgaria as an infant." And I was like, "Well, that doesn't make sense because we know my mom is my mom, blah, blah, blah." It's a long story. So I needed to talk to someone on that day. And I didn't want to talk to my friends. They're all immature. So I called that lady. I needed grown up in my life in that moment. So I called her and told her, and she started crying. I was like, "Why are you crying? This is my drama." She's like, "No, you don't understand." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "I served my mission in Bulgaria." And I was like, "That's odd." And she's like, "Well, no. Do you know what time?" I was like, "No." So I was born in 93 in December. She's like, "I served from 92 to 94. And in that time, she's been to the orphanages and played with the kids." Long story short, we found out that she held me as a baby. And I hang up and I called the missionaries. I was like, "I need the lessons."
Oh my
And
gosh,
if you
start crying. Oh my goodness.
One day I learned something new about my past I didn't know before, and it was really disturbing to me. And so my mother is my biological mother. We had DNA tests. She was pregnant with me while she was traveling, and apparently when she was in Bulgaria, she went into labor and then dropped me off there for a few weeks, then realized she could make a lot of money because human trafficking is one of the most lucrative crimes nowadays, and took me back. So I reached out to my friend in Utah. We started talking and I shared the news with her. She started crying and I wasn't sure what's going on. And she then told me that she served a mission for the church in Bulgaria at the same time I was in an orphanage in Bulgaria. We did a little research and we then found out that she helped me as a baby when I was in Bulgaria. And when I learned that my friend helped me as a baby, I knew that my longing to find a place where I could go Sundays was finally found.
After Berthmann learned the woman who taught her au pair class in Utah had been a missionary in Bulgaria, had visited the orphanage where Berthmann's mother left her, and that the missionary held her in her arms, she immediately sought out Mormon missionaries in Las Vegas, seen in this selfie she took. And in May 2017, Berthmann was baptized. Her spiritual mom came from Salt Lake to attend. The Mormon Church's online lifestyle magazine told Berthmann's conversion story, titling it, "The Miracles That Helped This Sex Trafficking Survivor Stay Alive and Find the Gospel." This is among several comments. Thank you to Coco for sharing her beautiful conversion story so filled with the Spirit. But was baby Sandra, that is Coco, dumped in an orphanage in Bulgaria? Did the woman she met years later visit the orphanage in 1993 and hold the infant in her arms? Despite Berthmann not using the name of her nanny history instructor, her spiritual mom, I was able to locate and interview her. About the claim she'd held Berthmann as an infant? She is a very good liar, she said. She also said that Berthmann had a history of extensive fabrications. Berthmann's spiritual mom told me she received what she perceived was a threatening email from a man in Germany who Berthmann said was her spiritual grandfather, so she blocked her from social media. Without explanation, the Mormon Church's magazine website deleted Berthmann's miracle conversion article. The deletion came after Berthmann's spiritual mom contacted LDS Living and said that part of Berthmann's story was not true. Several readers expressed disappointment. "I'm so disappointed. This article is no longer available." LDS Living, is there an archive to this story? I saved it because it was so amazing. I wanted to share it with my daughter, but now the link isn't working. The magazine made no correction or apology. The editorial department did not respond to my request for an interview. There's more proof besides spiritual mom's denial. Berthmann's birth certificate says she was born where both her father and mother told me she was born. Celle, Germany. Even Berthmann's own handwriting contradicts her Bulgarian birth claim. There were other signs of Berthmann's odd behavior and dishonesty. She said she had been recently raped twice and had a miscarriage. She attended a Celine Dion concert in Las Vegas where a friend took a cell phone shot with Berthmann and Dion in the same frame. She claimed Dion invited her to join her at an upcoming concert in Berlin in order to take Berthmann's huge message to all the girls. She later admitted lying about the invitation to perform with Dion. She fantasized about becoming a professional singer, writing an album, and appearing on Oprah's and Jimmy Fallon's talk shows. Next, Berthmann's Bible story. She claims her mother would not let her read the Bible while she was growing up.
We weren't really religious. I grew up Catholic, but we never went to church services. I had an older sister, she was 2 years older, who unfortunately passed away being trafficked. And we always secretly studied the Bible. We weren't really allowed to have the Bible in our house.
Berthmann's mother, Renata, denies the Bible claim. Although Renata says she was an active Roman Catholic, her children were baptized and received First Communion, taking the sacrament for the first time, when they were about 8 or 9. Here's Berthmann's older half-sister, Magdalena, after her ceremony, with her half-brother and half-sister, Mike and Coco. The next photo shows Coco and family celebrating her First Communion. That's Mike, Renata, and Magdalena grown up. Bible study preceded First Communion. Renata says there was always a Bible in the home. After Berthmann became interested in Mormonism, her child sex trafficking story seems to have taken root. The story's emergence may be reflected in an email she sent her spiritual mom after attending nanny class in Salt Lake City. The email talks about her birth parents getting divorced when she was about 4 and her mother not wanting to stay alone. She said mother's first boyfriend showed no interest in the 3 children. Until a new boyfriend, incredible guy, played with us, I suddenly had a dad. Something changed at my 10th birthday. I felt uncomfortable around him. I didn't want to tell my mom. I didn't want to cause trouble. He did horrible things to me. Listening to Celine Dion songs made my safe place for the next years. And so here's the takeaway. As Berthmann begins telling a story about sexual abuse, she had not told her mother, and she did not suspect her mother knew. Berthmann wrote in the email that she tried to get into a Celine Dion concert in Stuttgart in 2008, but could only stand outside and listen. It was the moment I decided to run away from home, from my stepdad who touched me, hurt me, and who broke my soul, and from my mother who never loved me. She ran away to a clinic in Frankfurt, she said. A social worker got Coco to open up. It went pretty fast with the police, and they took my stepdad in. He pleaded guilty within 2 hours and was charged with sexual abuse and rape of a child. I thought everything can get better until I talked to my family. When they found out, even though he said everything is true, they didn't believe me. That was the actual worst day of my life. Here's what her mother says happened. In 2008, she broke up with that boyfriend. It was the year before Sandra, that is, Coco, ran away to a clinic. But the clinic, she said, was in Hanover, not Frankfurt. Police did investigate the ex-boyfriend on suspicion of child rape and executed a search warrant on his house. Besides interviewing Coco, police interrogated her mother for several hours. Renata says she was told the police did not have enough evidence to make an arrest. Was Berthmann abused by the boyfriend? My guess is, likely, yes. This is the Hanover clinic where Renata says she visited her daughter and where, Renata says, Sandra was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and schizophrenia. Her brother Mike told me in a phone interview when I asked about the diagnosis, said he thinks his sister is psycho. In 2018, Berthmann moved back to the United States, this time on a student visa. She used LDS church connections in Germany to arrange housing with a Mormon family in Utah. She was accepted as part of the family, seen here at breakfast, Berthmann hoisting a cereal box. She wanted to attend BYU, could not get admitted, so she attended LDS Business College. The mother in the first host family told me that Berthmann began saying her mother pimped her to pedophiles a few weeks after she moved here. The more stories came out, the more attention she got, she said. She had a problem with smoking, but finally quit. She initially was denied a temple recommend, but then got one. She said her brother committed suicide. He's the one I interviewed on the phone. She claimed her mother had been a prostitute, and she feigned an attempt to commit suicide herself, but said that was part of her drama, and at one time admitted to some lies, saying it was a result of having been trafficked. One Berthmann story, rather widely circulated, was about her friend Tony dying. Tony was staying as a guest at the same home. He had been a BYU student who developed cancer. At one point, Berthmann told her next host family that he died. But when she learned he was going to attend her 10th year anniversary as a freed child sex slave, she changed her story. She said it was Tony's friend who died of cancer, not Tony. Her friends call it the Tony resurrection story. Other Berthmannisms: I was just called by America's Got Talent to be on the next season. I'm becoming an international human rights attorney. She's never been admitted to any law school. She was gifted a new car by an unnamed donor. She once thought human trafficking was a $150 billion enterprise. That's a number Tim Ballard throws around a lot. But she says some FBI agents told her it's really a $53 trillion enterprise worldwide. I've already discussed some of Coco Berthmann's fascination with Celine Dion. Here's a bit more. In November 2019, the Provo Daily Herald reported that teenage Coco fans raised money to buy her tickets to a Dion concert. They held fundraisers and dipped into their own savings. Berthmann is shown here with her donors. The article said Berthmann wrote letters to the Canadian singer and created an imaginary world where Dion became her mother. Every time something bad would happen, we meaning she and her sister, we would tell her in our minds, and she would give us hugs and tuck us in and sing us lullabies. I know it sounds so cheesy, but honestly, it was her and my sister who raised me. She was 12 years old when her older sister was stabbed to death in front of her. That was the push Berthmann needed to leave, the article said. On November 2nd, 2009, Berthmann ran away to the sound of Celine Dion. She threw away her cell phone and arrived at the clinic bruised and malnourished, but alive. Berthmann posted at least 3 music videos online in homage to her hero and to promote her mission as a survivor to end modern-day slavery. Surprising or not, Coco Berthmann and Tim Ballard did not get along. Berthmann told others that Tim Ballard was using Operation Underground Railroad to get famous, that he really did not care about victims. She said, "I'm not going to be in his group." She did not list OUR as one of the foundations she supported. Her post was shared tens of thousands of times and created quite a stir for Tim and his foundation, a source told me. Tim Ballard was trying to get her to meet with Elder Russell Ballard to help change her opinion of him and his foundation. She apparently blacklisted Ballard. The source said the Maloof Foundation had a fundraiser recently, and because she was speaking, she did not want them to have other people present, including Operation Underground Railroad. Fact, she was there, and Tim Ballard was not. In a text message string, Berthmann unloaded on Ballard. "OMG, guys, Tim went too far. He contacted the church, and now the brethren want to sit down with me. I am so pissed. How dare he is taking the church as a backup and manipulation tools to pressure me and threatening me." He said to Cammie, and I think here she's referring to Cammie Bowker, who runs her own child rescue foundation. He said to Cammie, "If I am against OUR, I am against the church. And now Elder Ballard wants to sit me down. I can't believe the church falls for his bullcrap and would even consider meeting because of a post I made that is protected by the Constitution, freedom of speech. He has absolutely no right to threatening me. What will happen if I don't support OUR? I get excommunicated? He's now attacked a second constitutional right of mine, religious freedom. This man is so idiotic. Does he really think he is the savior and has no accountability?" A friend of Ballard's texted Berthmann after she read Berthmann's attack on Ballard. She wrote, "Tim Ballard called me, confused why you would say he was fake and where you were getting your information from." She went on to say, "Sean Reyes, the Attorney General, is also very worried about the false accusations, and they want to deal with this in the best way. Tim heard from a different source that you need help with your status because of remote school, and he has connections at the White House and would be willing to help you in whatever way he can." This summer, Berthmann let her supporters know she may have quit Mormonism, plus told them about a new intimate detail. "This is scary, but this is honest," she wrote. "I made a decision to finally be who I really am on the inside, Coco Berthmann. I belong to me. I don't belong to any other person than myself and my own beliefs. I don't belong to any religious institutions." This post has been on my heart for months, probably for years. I'm scared, especially of the reaction that might come from this. Truth also is, I'm bisexual. That's when she included this photo of her sitting in front of the LDS Church Administration Building. Coco Berthmann did not respond to several phone messages and email requests for an interview and for documentation. Berthmann now joins a select group of people, all Mormons, who, in Utah, profited and gained notoriety by making false claims that Utah journalists helped publicize rather than expose. Congressman Doug Stringfellow's election was aided by his claim to have been on a daring rescue mission behind enemy lines during World War II. Paul Dunn claimed to have been a World War II hero and former professional baseball player. Mark Hoffman turned to murder to cover up his claim to have been an expert at tracking down rare, controversial documents that, in fact, he had forged. Coco Berthmann claimed to have been pimped out by her mother, to have been the victim of hundreds of sexual assaults, fooling news reporters, politicians, bloggers, and nonprofits like the Maloof Foundation. Those who publish Berthmann's accusations without any vetting may as well have stuck a "Sue Me" sign on their backs. Published accusations could trigger civil defamation lawsuits. Truth, though, is an absolute defense. If a print or broadcast reporter identifies someone accused of murder, for example, even omitting words like alleged or suspected, which should have been used, but the person really did commit the murder, there is no defamation. Plaintiffs usually bring lawsuits to prove they've been damaged by accusations proven in court to be false. Damage like losing a job and, say, $100,000 in pay. However, if a crime is falsely alleged, then it is a libel or defamation per se. That means the plaintiff does not have to prove he or she suffered damages. A jury is free to assume they did without any proof of damages. I discussed a hypothetical case with Utah Attorney Jeff Hunt, who defends print and TV news departments against libel suits. What if someone published a statement that a mother prostituted her daughter? He said any publisher of a statement, if it is false, if it did not happen, could be subject to liability. If the accusation is false and claims the person committed a crime, he said Utah recognizes such statements as libel per se. Accusing someone of sex trafficking a daughter would satisfy that. According to Utah courts, the test for libel per se is whether the words must, on their face and without the aid of extrinsic proof, be unmistakably recognized as injurious. Thus, would jurors think that falsely accusing a mother of pimping out her daughter be unmistakably injurious? For 9 years, I taught journalism at Brigham Young University. Yes, back in those days, we used these. BYU's journalism program emphasized basic professional standards. I used textbooks that reflected those values. The beginning courses I taught included one lecture on libel law and how to reduce chances of being successfully sued for defamation. Here are some of the basics that most journalism instructors teach for reporting about crime suspects, part of what are called generally accepted journalism standards. Always use terms like suspect, suspected, and alleged until there's a conviction. You must make every reasonable effort to get a comment from the person or persons accused of a crime. Document your effort to get a response. Double-check facts. If you make a mistake, correct it immediately. Keep thorough records. Retain all notes of your factual investigations in case you're sued. As an example, take the Daily Herald story. The reporter wrote, "Since her childhood, Berthmann's mother allowed paying strangers to sexually assault and abuse Berthmann and her 2 older sisters. But Berthmann remembers she was also raped or abused inside her home, sometimes 10 to 50 times a day. She remembers her mother taking her to parties where strangers would gang rape her and other children." The words suspected or alleged are missing. There's no attempt to contact her mother or other family members. There's no detail, no dates, no places. And there's no quizzing of Berthmann. I mean, raped 50 times a day? Really? Why, that story and others like it may be indefensible. While truth is an absolute defense, there's no evidence that I've seen, other than her daughter's testimony, that would prove Renata Ruff prostituted her daughter. On the contrary, there's lots of proof she did not. While a reporter following accepted journalism practices is not an absolute defense, it can be beneficial for jurors. But in this case, there's no sign the Daily Herald reporter followed accepted journalism practices. Then there's the matter of the witness defense attorneys would have to put on the stand. To successfully defend a defamation lawsuit, a defendant's attorney at trial would have to put Coco Berthmann on the stand as the key witness to testify she was trafficked by her mother. The Utah Rules of Evidence say a witness's credibility may be attacked or supported by testimony about the witness's reputation for having a character for truthfulness or untruthfulness, or by testimony in the form of an opinion about that character. Even an inexperienced plaintiff's attorney would have no problem impeaching her as a witness on the stand and calling other witnesses who would testify about her untruthfulness. Thanks for watching.